Silence doesn't feel empty. It feels crowded. That's the strange part. You can be in a quiet room, no noise, no voices, no notifications, no movement, and still feel like something is pressing against your chest. Like something unseen is watching you. Like your mind is suddenly louder than any crowd ever was. You tell yourself it's just quiet, just nothing happening, just stillness. But your body doesn't agree. Your breathing changes. Your thoughts speed up. Your muscles tighten. Your attention starts searching for something, anything, to focus on. And suddenly you feel uneasy for no clear reason. Most people think they're afraid of noise. But the truth is, a lot of people are afraid of silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the calm kind. Not the quiet you choose. The kind that arrives without warning. The kind that creates space. The kind that leaves you alone with your own mind. Because when the noise disappears, something else shows up. Your thoughts, your memories, your doubts, your unfinished conversations, your fears, your questions you keep avoiding. Silence doesn't create anxiety. It reveals it. And that's what most people never realize. We grow up surrounded by sound. TVs in the background, phones in our hands, music in our ears, conversations happening even when no one is really talking, notifications filling every empty second. Noise becomes normal. Stillness becomes unfamiliar. So when silence shows up, your nervous system doesn't read it as calm. It reads it as uncertainty. And the human brain hates uncertainty more than pain. Your mind is a prediction machine. It's always scanning, always interpreting, always trying to figure out what's coming next. Noise gives it structure, silence gives it space. And in that space, the mind starts filling gaps on its own. Thoughts appear that weren't invited. Memories surface that you didn't call. Emotions rise without explanation, not because silence cusses them, but because silence removes the distractions that were keeping them buried. Think about the last time you were truly alone in silence. No phone, no music, no background noise, no conversation, just you and the room. What happened? Your mind didn't go quiet. It got louder. You remembered things you weren't trying to remember. You thought about conversations that already ended. You replayed moments that can't be changed. You worried about things that haven't happened. You questioned decisions you already made. And suddenly the silence didn't feel calm anymore. It felt heavy, not loud, heavy. That's because silence removes external input. And when external input disappears, internal content becomes the focus. Most people spend their lives managing their external environment, but very few people learn how to sit with their internal one. So when silence forces that confrontation, anxiety shows up. Not as fear, not as panic, but as restlessness, unease, discomfort, the urge to reach for something, anything, to break the quiet. Your phone, your TV, your music, your scrolling, your messages, your tasks, your work. Not because you need them, but because they protect you from yourself. Silence takes away the buffer. And when there's no buffer, your mind has no filter. This is why silence feels different depending on your emotional state. When you're at peace internally, silence feels calm. When you're overwhelmed internally, silence feels unbearable. Same silence, different inner world. Anxiety doesn't come from the quiet. It comes from what the quiet allows you to notice. And what it allows you to notice is often what you've been avoiding. Unprocessed emotions don't disappear. They wait. Unresolved thoughts don't fade. They loop. Unspoken feelings don't dissolve. They sit in the background. Noise covers them. Silence exposes them. Your mind isn't trying to hurt you in silence. It's trying to process. But processing feels uncomfortable when you're not used to it. We live in a world that teaches distraction, not awareness. Productivity, entertainment, stimulation, movement, content, input, always something happening. So when nothing is happening, your nervous system doesn't interpret it as rest. It interprets it as a lack of safety signals. Your brain thinks, no information means I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening means I'm not in control. I'm not in control means I need to prepare. Preparation mode feels like anxiety. That's why your body reacts even when there's no danger. Silence removes external certainty, and the mind responds by creating internal noise. Thoughts. Worries. Scenarios. What-ifs. Replays. Imagined outcomes. Not because they're real, but because your brain prefers any story over no story. Even a bad explanation feels safer than no explanation. This is why people fall asleep with TVs on. Why they listen to music while working. Why they scroll before sleeping. Why they fill every empty moment. Not for entertainment, for regulation. Silence is unstructured space. And unstructured space feels threatening to a mind that craves predictability. But there's another layer that goes deeper than this. Silence doesn't just remove noise. It removes identity reinforcement. When you're busy, distracted, stimulated, reacting, you're playing roles. Worker. Friend. Student. Partner. Parent. Creator. Helper. Listener. Door. But in silence, those roles disappear. You're not performing. You're not responding. You're not producing. You're not entertaining. You're not engaging. You're just existing. And that's uncomfortable for people who learned their value from being useful, needed, productive, or busy. Silence strips you down to presence. No role. No function. No task. Just awareness. For many people, that feels like losing structure, like losing purpose, like losing control. So anxiety shows up to fill the gap. Not because silence is dangerous, but because it removes the systems you use to feel stable. And your nervous system doesn't like sudden emptiness. It likes patterns. Rhythms. Signals. Feedback. Silence gives none of that. So the mind creates its own. Thoughts become noise. Worries become stimulation. Overthinking becomes activity. Not because it helps, but because it feels familiar. Noise feels safer than stillness, even when the noise hurts. This is the real reason silence feels uncomfortable. Not because it's empty, but because it's honest. It shows you what's already there. It removes the filters, the distractions, the buffers, the escapes. And what remains is your inner world. For some people, that inner world feels calm. For others, it feels chaotic. Not because they're broken, but because they've never been taught how to be with it. We're taught how to achieve, how to perform, how to communicate, how to consume. how to distract. We're not taught how to sit, how to feel, how to observe, how to listen, how to be still without fear. So when silence comes, it feels unfamiliar, and the brain treats unfamiliar as unsafe. Not logically, biologically. Your body reacts before your mind explains. Tension appears before reasoning. Restlessness before understanding. Anxiety before awareness. Silence doesn't ask for attention. It demands awareness. And awareness is uncomfortable when you're not used to it. Not because it's painful, but because it's unfiltered, raw, undistracted, present. This is why silence can feel louder than noise. Because there's nothing between you and your mind. No buffer, no barrier, no escape, just presence. And presence is confronting when you've spent years avoiding it. Silence doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be escaped. It doesn't need to be filled. It doesn't need to be feared. It only needs to be understood. Because the anxiety you feel in silence isn't coming from the silence itself. It's coming from what you haven't learned how to sit with yet. And that's not weakness. It's conditioning. A nervous system trained on noise. A mind trained on distraction. An identity built on movement instead of presence. The moment you stop treating silence like a threat, it stops acting like one. Not instantly, not magically, not easily, but slowly. Quiet becomes space instead of pressure. Stillness becomes rest instead of tension. Awareness becomes grounding instead of overwhelming. And silence changes from something that exposes you into something that stabilizes you. Not because your mind got quieter, but because you stopped running from what it was trying to show you.